I always believed that education was the one thing no one could take from you. At 72, I still remembered the smell of chalk dust on my fingertips, the rhythm of the classroom clock ticking through long afternoons, and the way young minds lit up when they finally understood. That's what I missed most since retiring. The light, not the paychecks, not the prestige, just that spark. When I opened the letter from Ravenwood University that morning, my hands trembled, not from age, but from pride. It wasn't for me, of course. It was for my granddaughter, Chloe Hayes, my only grandchild. My heart. She was graduating summa cum laude, just like I had. 50 years ago, the invitation was beautiful, embossed, elegant, printed on heavy cream paper that smelled faintly of ink and ambition. I smiled, imagining the moment I'd watch her cross the stage, that bright yellow stole draped across her shoulders. After all, I'd helped pay for it. Actually, I'd funded almost everything. Her tuition, her off-campus apartment, her books, over $18,000 from my pension and savings. I told myself it was worth every cent. I wasn't wealthy. But seeing her succeed felt like watching a seed I'd planted bloom after a long winter. So I called her that evening. I expected excitement. Instead, her tone was clipped, almost rehearsed. "Grandma, that's so sweet, but you don't have to come all the way here," she said. "It's a big campus. You'd get tired. And, well, there's limited seating." I laughed softly. "Chloe, sweetheart, I've been to more graduations than I can count. I'll manage a folding chair." A pause. I heard Ethan's voice in the background. Then a quick shuffle before she returned. "It's not that, Grandma. It's just things are complicated. Ethan's family is flying in, and the tickets. They're spoken for." "Spoken for," I repeated. "Honey, I sent you the money for the ceremony package myself." Another silence. "Right? About that? The school messed something up. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you, okay?" Her voice wavered, just enough for my gut to twist. I didn't argue. I'd learned over the years that when people hide something, silence tells you more than words ever could. 2 days later, I received a Facebook post from a friend. A photo. Chloe, standing in front of the Ravenwood banner, her arm looped around Ethan Cole, her boyfriend, both beaming. The caption read, "Proud of our future leaders." Couldn't ask for a better family moment. I blinked. Family moment, I wasn't in it. No mention of me, no tag, no trace of the woman who had wired tuition payments and mailed care packages for 4 long years. The comment section overflowed with congratulations, heart emojis, and one detail that nearly stopped my heart. Vivian Cole, Ethan's wealthy aunt, had commented, "So proud of my niece and nephew. You both looked stunning on stage." On stage, so there were tickets, seats, celebration, just not for me. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, the house dim except for the warm light of a single lamp. The walls seemed to echo. My late husband's photo hung near the dining room, smiling as if to ask, "You okay, Maggie?" I wasn't. The betrayal wasn't about the ceremony. It was about being erased, forgotten. I wasn't useful anymore. And that realization hit harder than I ever expected. Still, pride and heartbreak are dangerous companions. The next morning, I decided I would attend anyway. I packed my suitcase, ironed my navy blue dress, the same one I wore at my retirement dinner, and drove 4 hours to Ravenwood. The campus hadn't changed much. The ivy still curled around the stone walls. Students rushed past with the same energy I used to love. I didn't tell Chloe I was coming. I didn't need an invitation to witness a moment I'd helped build. When I reached the auditorium, ushers stood near the entrance, checking names on a list. "Hayes," I said softly, handing them my ID. They scanned the paper, frowned, and shook their heads. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Only 2 guests per graduate. You're not listed." I looked past them, through the glass doors, where laughter echoed inside, through the crack. I saw her, Chloe, in her cap and gown, radiant, glowing, her hand clutching Ethan's. They were posing for a photographer, Vivian Cole on one side, Ethan's parents on the other. Champagne bottles glinted in a silver bucket beside them. For a long moment, I just watched. I didn't wave. Didn't knock. Instead, I smiled faintly and whispered to myself, "Congratulations, sweetheart." Then I turned around and walked away that night. Back in my hotel room, I sat on the bed and opened my laptop. For the first time in months, I logged into my bank account, for recent withdrawals from my savings caught my eye. Not from me. Each labeled as educational fund transfers. My stomach tightened. I cross-checked the transaction IDs with Chloe's tuition receipts. None matched. Ethan's name appeared on one of the transfers. Ethan Cole. A chill ran through me. This wasn't a clerical error. This was theft disguised as education. I didn't sleep that night. The hum of the mini fridge and the flicker of streetlight through the curtains kept me awake. My thoughts spiraled between disbelief and anger. But one thing grew clearer. This wasn't just about a missed, quote, graduation. It was about deception, control, and a pattern I had ignored too long. As dawn crept through the window, I whispered aloud, "You wanted to make me invisible, Chloe, but you just reminded me who I am." And in that quiet hotel room, surrounded by unpaid receipts and broken trust, I decided if my family wanted to play games, I would show them I still remembered how to win. When you've lived long enough, you learn to spot patterns, even the ones that break your heart. Back in my hotel room, I spent hours combing through every digital trail I could find. Receipts, transfers, tuition portals, even archived emails. My eyes blurred as the sun crawled up behind the blinds, casting a thin gold line across the carpet. Every document pointed to the same thing. Someone had rerouted my money. I clicked open one of the receipts from 3 months ago. It listed Cole Financial Services as a secondary payee, the same Cole that belonged to Ethan's family. My pulse thudded. Ethan wasn't just some charming campus boyfriend. He came from old money, the kind that cloaked greed behind good manners. And now, my granddaughter was tangled in that web. I tried calling Chloe that morning. No answer. I sent a text instead, "Sweetheart, can we talk about the tuition payments?" Something looks off. No reply. By afternoon, she blocked my number. That's when the first real crack appeared in my chest. Not anger, but disbelief. The kind that leaves you sitting in silence, trying to figure out when love had turned into a transaction. I checked out of the hotel and drove back home. Every mile on that long highway feeling heavier than the last. The landscape blurred by, gas stations, fields, towns I used to pass when visiting my students' parents. Somewhere along the way, I realized I was talking to myself aloud, not out of madness, but out of the need to make sense of betrayal. You raised her better, Maggie. You did. No, you paid for everything. Maybe that's the problem. When I got home, the air in my old house felt still. The walls were lined with framed photos of my teaching days, letters from grateful students, and one picture of Chloe, age 10, holding a spelling bee trophy. She looked so proud that day. So innocent, I sat in front of that photo and whispered, "Where did I lose you?" 3 days later, I got a knock at my door. When I opened it, a courier handed me a thick envelope. Inside, a letter from Cole and Everett Law Firm. It was a petition for guardianship. They were claiming I was mentally unfit to handle my finances. My knees buckled, and I gripped the doorway for balance. The letter stated that Chloe Hayes, my own granddaughter, was seeking temporary guardianship to protect her grandmother's well-being. Attached was a medical assessment signed by a Dr. Bevan. Claiming early dementia symptoms, I felt my body go cold. There was only one problem. I'd never met that doctor. I called my family physician, Dr. Henson, immediately. He confirmed what I feared. Someone had forged his referral. He sounded angry. "Maggie, they're trying to build a legal case against you. You need representation fast." Representation. My savings had been drained. My granddaughter turned stranger, and my reputation was now being rewritten on legal letterhead. But I wasn't helpless. I'd spent my life teaching others to think critically, to look beyond the obvious. I knew one person who could help me, Naomi Winters, a former student of mine who had once sat in the front row of my ethics class. She was brilliant, fiercely loyal, and now a lawyer in Chicago. I called her office the next morning. When she picked up, her voice brought back a flood of memories. Her eager questions, her sharp insights, her laughter during debates. "Professor Hayes, is that really you?" Hearing her call me that made my eyes sting. "Yes, Naomi, and I'm afraid I need more than advice this time. I told her everything. The blocked calls, the missing funds, the fake doctor's note, and the guardianship petition." When I finished, there was a long silence on the line. Then Naomi said quietly, "Don't worry. We're going to handle this. But you'll need proof. Something undeniable." Proof, that word echoed like a promise. We started with the bank records. Naomi guided me through setting up a legal trace every suspicious transaction, every email linked to Ethan Cole. And then came the discovery that made my stomach twist. Chloe and Ethan weren't just siphoning my money. They'd used it to create a Hayes Educational Scholarship Fund in my name. But under their control, they had been soliciting donations from wealthy alumni, claiming it was a charity for underprivileged students. Except the money was never going to students. It was going into private accounts connected to the Coles. It was a scam, an academic empire of lies, built on my legacy. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, staring at the stars, wondering how far love could bend before it broke completely. The cicadas hummed in the dark. The wind carried faint whispers through the trees. I thought of my late husband again, a gentleman who used to say, "If they think you're weak, that's your strongest advantage." He was right. If they wanted to paint me as a fragile old woman, I would let them believe it. For now, because I was about to turn their game inside out. The next morning, Naomi called with a plan. "Maggie, do you still have your old faculty ID?" "I think so, yes." "Good. Ravenwood's campus cameras are managed by the same IT team you worked with. If we can access the security archives from the graduation night, we might find evidence of fraud or worse." Her tone sharpened. "But we'll need someone inside to help." I knew exactly who Daniel Ruiz, a retired facilities manager, used to oversee campus operations. I'd once helped him finish his GED after his wife got sick. He owed me a favor, not that I ever called one in before. When I met Daniel the following afternoon, he looked older but kind as ever. His hands were rough from years of work, his eyes steady. "You always said education never forgets, Maggie," he said with a grin. "Guess you were right." Within hours, Daniel and Naomi arranged secure access to the internal camera archives. The footage from graduation night loaded on Naomi's laptop. We watched in silence as the ceremony unfolded. Students in gowns, laughter, applause, flashes of cameras. Then, at the reception hall, I saw Ethan pouring champagne, Chloe smiling, Vivian Cole beside them whispering something. Seconds later, Ethan discreetly switched to glasses. Naomi paused the video. "Zoomed in? What was that?" Daniel frowned. "Wait, that's the Cole family's aunt, Vivian. She was taken to the hospital that night. Rumor said food poisoning. Poisoning." A sick chill crawled up my spine. The switch wasn't about celebration. It was control. A message. Maybe even a warning between the Coles. I didn't know what game they were playing. I knew I was part of it now. And for the first time in months, I felt something other than fear. I felt ready. "Naomi," I said quietly, "get me a copy of that footage. It's time we reminded them that this old professor still knows how to teach a lesson." When you've lived long enough, you learn the difference between being forgotten and being erased. What Chloe and the Coles were doing wasn't neglect, it was an erasure of my name, my work, my dignity. But the thing about trying to erase a woman who's written her life in ink, you'll need more than greed to do it. Naomi and I met early the next morning in my kitchen. The air smelled like coffee and resolve. She slid her laptop across the table. "The footage checks out. The timestamp is authentic. But we need corroboration, someone who can verify it wasn't tampered with." Daniel offered quietly. "I know a guy, Ray, used to handle IT forensic stuff for the university board. He owes me a favor." I smiled faintly. Daniel, you seem to have quite a lot of people who owe you favors. He shrugged. Guess kindness sticks, Professor? It did. So did betrayal. By noon, Ray confirmed the footage was legitimate. Ethan had indeed switched the champagne glasses, and the drink meant for me had gone to Vivian Cole instead. The poison wasn't lethal, mild, but strong enough to cause fainting, confusion, and the hospital trip. Naomi tapped the table. They meant to incapacitate you, Maggie. If you'd fainted in public, the dementia claim would have stuck. My mouth went dry. I sat back, clutching the edge of the chair. They hadn't just stolen my money. They wanted my mind. They wanted to paint me as an unstable relic. The betrayal burned through me, slow and controlled. Like a flame I refused to let consume me. Then we fight smarter, I said finally. They taught me deceit. I'll teach them consequence. We filed for an injunction to halt the guardianship petition, presenting Naomi's initial findings to the court clerk. It's just enough to freeze any immediate power transfer. But the Coles were faster than I expected. Within 2 days, their attorney had issued a countersuit claiming malicious defamation on my part. They were playing dirty. Dragging me through mud, hoping I'd crumble under the weight, the gossip spread fast. Social media buzzed with twisted headlines. Elderly professor accused of financial misconduct. Ravenwood's former faculty under investigation. I'd never been on social media before that week, but I learned quickly that lies move faster than truth. One post had over 5,000 shares. My face next to a bold caption. Caught stealing from her own granddaughter. That image would have broken me once. Now it just sharpened my focus. Naomi, Daniel, and I met in secret at an old cafe off the main square. They're pushing public pressure, Naomi said, scrolling her tablet. It's not about the court now. It's about humiliation. And they'll use every ounce of it, Daniel added grimly. The Coles thrive on appearances. I took a slow sip of my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. Then maybe it's time to use that against them. Both of them looked up. We're going to host a charity event, one that mirrors their fake scholarship gala. But this time it's real, recorded, transparent. Every donation tracked, every guest screened. Naomi blinked. You want to expose them live? Exactly, I said. If they crave attention, I'll give them a spotlight bright enough to melt their lies. 2 weeks later, invitations went out under a new banner. Hayes True Scholars Initiative honoring integrity in education. It wasn't just an event. It was a trap wrapped in silk and sincerity. Chloe called me for the first time in months. Her tone was soft, calculated. Grandma, I heard about your little event. Why would you do that without consulting us? I could hear Ethan in the background. Because integrity doesn't need permission, I said coolly. You and your partners can attend if you're not too busy managing your own. Foundations. A pause. Then her mask slipped for just a second. You don't understand how things work anymore, Grandma. You're old. You don't fit in this world. Her words stung like tiny knives. But I kept my voice even. Sweetheart, I built this world. You're just renting it. The night of the gala shimmered with gold light and camera flashes. I wore a navy gown, simple, classic, while Naomi orchestrated the press coverage. Daniel handled security and re-monitored live data feeds. The Coles arrived fashionably late, of course. Ethan in a smug tuxedo, Chloe in a champagne-colored dress that sparkled under the chandeliers. When I saw her, 1,000 memories flickered through my mind. Her as a toddler on my lap, coloring books on the kitchen floor. Her laughter like sunlight. Now that same girl looked at me as if I were a stranger standing in her way, halfway, through the evening. Naomi whispered, everything's rolling. The reporters are ready for your speech. My heart pounded. But I stepped to the podium, steady as ever. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate education, the one gift that can't be stolen, only shared. Polite applause. Cameras clicked. But lately I continued, my voice tightening. Some have tried to turn education into a tool for manipulation, to exploit generosity, to rewrite history in their favor. clicked the remote in my hand. The large screen behind me flickered, then displayed the security footage from graduation. Night. The audience gasped. The frame showed Ethan switching the champagne glasses. Vivian collapsing moments later. This, I said, my voice steady, is what greed looks like when it dresses up as ambition. The room froze. Chloe stood rigid, her hand clutching Ethan's arm. The color drained from his face. Naomi stepped forward with two officers, handing over documentation, financial records, transaction trails, fake scholarship accounts. The police escorted Ethan and his aunt out first. While reporters erupted in questions, Chloe's eyes found mine across the chaos. "How could you?" she hissed. I looked at her, really looked at her, not as a villain, but as a lost child who'd traded love for currency. "Because I had to teach you one last lesson," I said quietly. "Integrity isn't inherited. It's earned." The days that followed were a blur of statements, court sessions, and headlines, this time telling my truth. Former professor exposes scholarship scam. Hayes family restores educational integrity. Naomi managed to recover a portion of the stolen funds. The rest we redirected into a legitimate scholarship, one under strict supervision. I didn't want the money back. I wanted meaning back. A month later, as autumn leaves scattered across my yard, I received a letter from the university board. They were naming a new scholarship in my honor. The Margaret Hayes Endowment for Ethical Education. I laughed softly, tears blurring my vision. In the end, it wasn't revenge that fulfilled me. It was redemption, through truth. Through the next generation, I sit now on my porch, sipping tea under the late afternoon sun, writing these words for the women watching who think it's too late to fight back. It's not. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because I want to remind you, every lesson you've learned in life can one day save you. They called me old, irrelevant, a relic of the past. But knowledge, true knowledge, doesn't age. And that, my dear, was how I turned betrayal into legacy. There's something quiet about victory, not the kind you see in headlines, but the kind that lives inside your bones. After the storm passes, after the truth scorches, everything falls. What's left is peace, uneasy, earned. Sacred. The court hearings stretched on for months. Ethan Cole pled guilty to fraud and falsification of academic documents. Vivian Cole, his aunt, took a plea deal, 5 years probation and permanent removal from university affiliations. But the one who cut deepest, Chloe, chose silence. She didn't testify. She didn't apologize. She just vanished. Naomi found out. She withdrew from graduate school, her scholarships revoked, her social accounts deleted. It was like she'd been erased, this time by her own shame still. Even knowing everything she'd done, part of me ached for her. Because betrayal at its core isn't just about greed. It's about emptiness, the kind that swallows love when it isn't nurtured. Daniel stopped by often after the trial ended. One evening, we sat by the fireplace, the logs crackling, the house finally quiet after months of noise. "You ever regret it?" he asked softly, fighting back. I smiled faintly. "No, but I regret what it cost." He nodded, sipping his tea. "You gave her everything, Maggie. Sometimes love turns people entitled instead of grateful." I stared at the flames, thinking of Chloe's laughter when she was little, the way she'd run across the garden with dandelions in her hair. "Maybe I gave her too much," I whispered, "and not enough wisdom to carry it." The Margaret Hayes Endowment for Ethical Education launched that spring. Naomi and Daniel insisted I deliver the opening address. Even though I'd sworn off public speaking, the campus auditorium looked different now. Younger faces, newer technology, but the same energy pulsed through it. Hope, curiosity, the hunger to learn. As I stepped to the podium, the crowd hushed. The microphone hummed softly under my fingers. When I first began teaching, I said I believed education was about achievement, degrees, titles, success. But I was wrong. Education is about character, about the kind of person you become when no one's watching. Applause rippled through the audience. The truth is, wisdom doesn't come from comfort. It comes from fire. And if you're sitting here today, remember this. What you learn in struggle will one day be your strength. I paused, letting the words sink in. This scholarship isn't about money. It's about integrity. It's about choosing honesty, even when deceit pays better. After the ceremony, a shy student approached me, a young woman with auburn curls and bright, nervous eyes. "Professor Hayes," she said softly, "I just wanted to thank you. I'm the first in my family to go to college. This scholarship means everything." Tears pricked my eyes. I smiled and took her hand. "Then promise me something," I said. "Use this chance to make the world kinder, not just smarter." She nodded earnestly, and in that moment, something inside me healed. The wound Chloe left behind didn't ache as sharply anymore. It became a scar, not a void. A few months later, I received a letter unsigned, with no return address. Inside, one folded sheet. "Grandma, I watched the news. I saw everything. You were right. I didn't understand integrity until I lost it. I'm sorry. Maybe one day I'll be someone you'd be proud of again." See, I read it twice. Then again, for a long time, I sat on the porch with that letter in my lap, the evening sun painting the sky gold. I didn't cry this time. I just whispered into the breeze, "I already am." Because forgiveness, I realized, isn't weakness. It's released now as I sit here recording my story for you. Yes, if you're watching on the other side of this screen, I want you to understand something. If you've ever been betrayed by family, if you've ever been silenced, dismissed, or called too old to matter, don't let them define your ending. Start again. At 50, 60, 70, it doesn't matter. You can rebuild your story, one truth at a time. I thought my life ended the night I wasn't invited to Chloe's graduation. Turns out that was just the prologue. So to every woman watching, if someone ever calls you irrelevant, smile and let them. Because while they're chasing attention, you're building legacy. And as for me, I'll keep teaching, just in a different classroom now. One filled with life, loss, laughter, and second chances if you're still here with me. Hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments if you've ever found your strength after being betrayed. Because stories like ours, they deserve to be heard. And that, my dear, is how I turned silence into a graduation of my own.